Hello and welcome to Geeks Assemble once again. And today we will be discussing a 1964 movie by Stanley Kubrick, um, starring Peter Sellers, Peter Sellers, and George C. Scott. Um, the film we are talking is Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. So, without further ado, we will go to Stephen Price. See what his opening thoughts are on Doctor Strangelove.
I haven't seen this in very so many years. It's got to be about 10, 12 years ago I watched this. Oh, it's brilliant. Every movie by Kubrick is brilliantly made. Peter Sellers, brilliant. I've forgotten how many parts he took. I forgot, how many parts he took in the movie. Yeah, very, very well made. And there's some funny scenes. There's one funny scene. There's a couple of funny scenes, and I'll explain them later.
Oh, brilliant for that. Let's go to Susan and Alex. Let's see what their opening thoughts are on this.
Very trippy, very cool. Oh, so much politics. The Sellers character who's playing the doctor with the hand that was possessed by the Nazi spirit was really something. He's got quite a range, that Peter Sellers. I think that he was brilliant in Pink Panther, but in this he was uh, outrageous, just so much good. And the movie, the film itself is beautiful, black and white, chosen to be black and white, with you know just the most intense thing ever. And yeah, and the yeah, so that's where I'll leave it. Okay, here's Alex.
Okay. Well, of course, it brings to mind quite a few movies. This is one of the first, but you also have War Games. I was reminded a little bit of War Games, even though that was, 20 years after or 15 years after. And a couple other movies. And of course, you have some catchphrases like I told you never to call me here and other weird things like that. Of course, Peter Sellers was a great comic actor, and unfortunately, I guess in his real life, he wasn't that nice. But he always was in interesting films, and I think he was one of the first that he was sort of in a dichotomy in a way of playing weird characters, but he made them funny, like Inspector Clouseau and other and what's his name, the guy from Being There as well, that also had to deal with politics. It was Sydney, I think his name was Sydney. I forgot the last name. But he did a lot of subversive stuff, even though people don't realize it. And his acting was so good, and his presence was so good because if you think about it, um, there's not a lot of enjoyable characters in this movie per se. Inspector Clouseau could have gotten old really, really fast, and because he was such a good actor, and because the writing and the direction were so good. I mean, you had so many actors in this movie. James Earl Jones, if you guys didn't notice him in the plane, uh, and also the what was it, the commander that goes, yeah, Slim Pickens, and who's also in another movie that we've mentioned quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, there's the what was it? Was it a colonel? The colonel that goes off his head.
Yes.
Always talking about the purity of essence, shall we say, the bodily fluid, shall we say? that he sort of went off his rocker as well. So it was a comedy. It was a little bit of an allegory. It was a little bit of a warning, but it's a good movie and it was well done, and that's one of the reasons why it's so famous.
Thanks for that, Alex. Brian, that's it. It's your turn now. See, this is your first time watching this movie, so what's your opening thoughts on this black comedy by Stanley Kubrick?
Okay, Doctor Strangelove. My thoughts on this movie? I didn't really appeal to it. It wasn't really my cup of tea, and just didn't. I I got that it was like a comedy war film, but I just didn't feel. I just didn't appeal to me, and wasn't. I just didn't really get most of it. So I'm yeah, just wasn't my really type of movie.
Okay, thanks for that, Brian. We'll move over to Beef Dad now. And, let's see what he thinks.
I saw this film when it first came out in 1964. At that time, I hated it because it brought back so many memories of what had happened during 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I remember the terror that we all went through at the time, believing that there was the possibility of a nuclear war starting at any moment. And you woke up in the morning, you thought, oh, thank God, it didn't happen overnight. It was a really scary period of time. And to have brought out basically a send-up of it 2 years later was a little bit, as far as I was concerned at the time, bad timing. Because there were so many people who were still afraid because it had come so close to nuclear war that we didn't find this particularly funny. And there was a couple of amusing things about it. I mean, the president, Merkin Muffley, I presume we all know what a merkin is. Does everyone know what a merkin is? No? It's a wig that a female wears down below. Yes, and that's called a merkin. Yeah, there was some amusing moments, but just moments, as all has been said with Dr. Strangelove and his mechanical arm automatically going into the Nazi salute every 5 minutes. And well, the thing was about it all, everybody then saw that it wouldn't take very much, just needs really for one person in authority to crack up to actually tip us into a nuclear war. And one of the things, to be perfectly honest, that relates to then and now is you have a president in America And it's entirely possible that that man is not stable enough to prevent a nuclear war. In fact, he's so unstable that he could quite possibly start one. And, so perfectly honest, Peter Sellers was always one of my favourite actors. I used to listen to Peter Sellers on the radio on the Goon Show way back in 1900 and Frozen to Death. Before any of you were even thought of. I was I suppose I was about 5 when I really remember my first one. So you're talking 65 years ago, so none of you are old enough to even remember that. And he's very good. He's very clever, and he was very adept at playing multiple people. And Group Captain Lionel Mandrake was absolutely superb piece of acting. That really was very, very good. But that's me. Depressing, aren't
you? Yes. Thank you for the depressing bit of the cast. It's usually when Alex starts to talk, that's when everybody gets depressed, but he's not here. So, my take on this. It's a strange movie, this, because every time Peter Sellers is on screen, the screen lights up, because he is a wonderful, versatile actor. He was, and reading up on this, I didn't realise he was supposed to do 4 roles in this, but then he broke his ankle and he couldn't do the role of the captain who rode the bomb. He was supposed to play that part as well, but Slim Pickens had to come in and do that role. The movie feels like it's made on the cheap, shall we say. It does feel like an edited, and the editing doesn't feel like it's very edited well, but I think maybe that's how they're meant to do it. As for the say Dr. Strangelove, brilliant characterization. Dr. Strangelove in the chair and the arm, but it's hardly in the movie. So I don't know why it was called Dr. Strangelove, to be honest. I know it was based on a book called Red Alert, but as Beef said, Mandrake character brilliant, stiff upper lip, British captain, and but for me, the president. The role of the president when he's talking to Dimitri on the phone all the time, that for me, it's just I was no, you're not more sorry than me, Dimitri. It was like a married couple over the phone. Those scenes were brilliant, but I couldn't understand what Beef was saying because I totally forgot about the Cuban Missile Crisis being 2 years before. But I could understand where Beef Dad's coming from with that. Yeah, that is bad timing, as Beef Dad said. But this movie has, through the years, gone down as a classic. I don't know. As I say, it's a bit of a mixed match for me. Parts it's enjoyable, parts it's too close to reality. But with Peter Sellers in the mix, you seem to forget about that, and you just seem to, for me, focus on Peter Sellers every time it's on the screen, which isn't a bad thing. So for that, we'll go around any things you didn't like or you did like. We'll go in reverse. We'll go to Beef Dad. Oh, sorry. Did you want to go next? Don't look at me like that, Dimitri.
I enjoyed Peter Sellers' performances in this, particularly the group captain, where he was trying to sort things out with the lunatic that had started it all. That was good. Slim Pickens was as Major King Kong. That's a crazy name, but he was very good. James Earl Jones was I think it's the first thing I ever saw James Earl Jones in.
I think this might be in his first movie role.
But yeah, he was quite good. But yeah, as I say, the thing that really gets me is Peter Sellers playing the group captain. That's the best bit of the film. But the whole concept of the film still, even to this day, punches me in the gut, shall we say.
Yes, see where you're coming from there. Right, so we'll go to Susan and Alex.
So I was noticing that it was almost like a two-act between the British or the Russian and the Russian and American president, and the British officer, and the group captain, or the group captain and his American counterpart, and those two acts were at one time or another, either one is playing the straight one. I find that it was just really dramatic and really fun, and one of my favorite British British screenwriters, Robert Holmes, writes really awesome two acts. But I mean, it was dramatic. It was like the only movie that many people see with an actual, group of stock footage of nuclear blasts, which was incredibly dramatic. I mean, like mind-blowingly dramatic, like going to outer space dramatic. I mean, it was so scary, and so, for people who liked war, it's a thrill. I mean, and for those who never thought that we would be able to destroy ourselves, it's a wake-up call. And I know that Kubrick chose those scenes really wisely. And but I'm getting what Beef Dad says now. I'm like feeling that. So here's Alex.
Okay, well, not to be long-winded, I was trying to cut it short, actually. Yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of politics from the Cold War, and we know that was going on for quite a while. And the war between Britain, America versus communism. Unfortunately, in 2018, we have different weapons to worry about: chemical, biochemical, anthrax. We have different enemies now. It's not just the Russians. We have terrorists of all kinds. We have ISIS. We have people that are going into public areas and just shooting people up with assault rifles. So while this does have more than a grain of truth, and my mother was in Cuba during the Bay of Pigs and Cuban Missile Crisis, and she's expressed her own thoughts about that, but I don't want to weigh it down too much here. But there's also war games, and there's also Chernobyl, and as we know, that happened in the 80s. So hopefully People are wise enough to know that we can't go to the moon, we can't go to Mars. So if we ruin the planet here, we're kind of done for. And there was also that TV movie, The Day After Tomorrow, that also changed a lot of people's minds in a little less war-loving era. There's still some neocons and other politicians that like it, but most people are smart enough now to know that this isn't the 1930s, this isn't the 1950s where you could do stuff like that and there won't be any repercussions. But like I said, it's this movie and War Games, I think, and Day After Tomorrow, the TV movie, and I think that changed a lot of people's minds toward that subject. And now we have to worry about the new enemies.
Yes, it's something to think about, isn't it? We'll move over to Stephen, see what he has to say.
Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. The part that made me laugh was where Peter Sellers was playing Arya Fox captain or whatever, when he was asking that guy, you didn't have enough change to phone the president. And he says, oh, stick a few bullet holes in that Pepsi.
And Stephen, the character's name that was the one who shot the thing. It was Colonel Bakuano.
Oh, right. Well, I can remember the names anyway. And he said before he shot it, you'll be yearning from Pepsi or something. Yeah, that's my and the part where they drop the bomb and you see the guy on the end of the bomb, that made me laugh.
Yeah, it's.
I'm talking about the Cuban missile. What do you call it? At that time, my dad was working on a building site, and him and his workmates were terrified that nuclear war could break out. He was worried, are we here tomorrow? Do I get paid? Do I get paid next week? Yeah, one of the workers said. I need my wages now in case we get. He was. They were absolutely terrified.
This is what everybody was living under at the time, wasn't it? I mean, wait, it was
still.
I
was only 3 years old then, so I wouldn't have knew anything about it.
Yeah, as I said, we've been living under the threat of war has been with us over our heads since the dawn of time, really, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But, so it'll never go away. You'll never change these people in power. You just have to get on with life. As I keep telling people, panic every hour of the day that we're all going to die tomorrow. You can't live life like that. You just got to enjoy your life. Brian, is it worth me asking, have you got any part of this movie you were keen on or you didn't like?
I mean, not really. I mean, I just didn't really like the film. I mean, it's just that I'm not really too keen on war stories and war films, at least to me.
Well, this really wasn't a war. This really wasn't a war film. This was a warning to the people who was watching. That wasn't like a war film.
Okay, I get that. It's just that, I mean, I know that war is real and there's mostly wars going on all around us, even to this day, but it's just, I don't know. It just, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't really like it. Maybe I thought it was, I mean, I thought it was, to me, I thought it was a bit slow and a bit too much dialogue within most of the parts within the movie, and because half the time, like with films, I just I don't really enjoy too much dialogue, and I thought this was like the
Can I ask you a question, Brian?
yeah.
Did you like the part in the plane?
Yeah, I did.
Did you like the part around the round table?
Uh, not really. No.
And did you like the part in the army base with the British guy and the American guy?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, but
Okay.
I thought there was just a few moments within the film. I thought it had like too little bit too much dialogue and a bit slow at times. So
Well, uh, well, as said, you wasn't being on the table of the war room. I think a lot of dialogue does happen in a war room, but you know you can't please everybody every time, all the time. Uh, for me, though, Peter Sellers makes this movie. I mean, you most probably haven't heard of Peter Sellers before, have you, Brian?
no, I have not. No, I've not.
You check him out. I mean, he's no longer with us now, but check him out and look at his back catalogue of work. There is a scene in this movie. I don't know if anybody picked up on it. Is when Doctor Strangelove is in the chair doing that big speech in front of all the people, and his arm goes down to the side and his chair's spinning round. The Russian ambassador is just stood there behind the chair. He is trying to. He is on the verge of laughing. His lips are trembling, and he's looking at Peter Sellers. And I think they kept this bit in the film as well, which is, you know, I always catch these little things. But yeah, for me, it was Peter Sellers. Every time Peter Sellers is on that screen, it just lights up. And as you say, James Earl Jones, one of his first movie roles, later to become world famous for the voice of Darth Vader, of course. And there was a young Dennis Hopper in that plane as well. Big thumbs up to one of the best actors ever, Dennis Hopper. So, if anyone's got anything else to say, we'll go to final say and score, if that's okay with you guys. Okay, we will go Alex and Susan first then.
Well, yeah, like I said, I mean, I've watched this at different times. I watched it, what, 5 years ago, and of course, it was a different time. Um, of course, it's a lot easier to say, "Don't call me here" or "No fighting here. This is the war room," and things like that. But that's the other thing that struck me about this movie and War Games as well, even though that was more with computers, and that was 20 years later. Is of course what happens when any system breaks down and there's no override and there's no way to undo what's been done. I mean, that's the thing. And again, this is 2018, where we've had a lot of terrorism in the last 10 years, and other things to worry about. But at the time, this movie, War Games, and Day After Tomorrow, I think helped change a lot of points of view about that. It is a funny movie. It is as realistic as it can get and still be a comedy. Peter Sellers is great. He always was, regardless of his personal issues. George C. Scott as well was very funny. And it's funny how he's able to be very serious, but very wild, but very, and there's a lot of good acting and a lot of good directing as well. So I'd have to give this a 9. It is a warning. And like I said, it's, a very thought provoking movie. And luckily, we're all here to debate it. Luckily, things haven't gotten so bad that there's been a major change of lifestyle or culture in this. But it's a good movie. That's what a movie should do. A good movie, a good book, a good song. You can enjoy it for what it is, but at the same time, it makes you think. And so, like I said, I'll give it a 9.
Thanks. I'll give this a 10. Um, it's- in my opinion, it's one of the most excellent, films of its generation, uh, and Stanley Kubrick scared the pants off of everybody, uh, both with this and with 2001, where another computer goes. This time the computer goes haywire and tries to kill everybody on the spaceship. Anyway, his ideas are dramatic and huge and over the top, and yeah, so that's who he is, and for all that, it's a 10.
Thank you, Susan. Let's go to Brian.
My turn.
Yes, I know it's not going to be a 10.
Alright. My score would probably be for this film I'll give it a 4. A 4 out of 10.
4. Okay, thank you, Brian. Stephen, what's your opinion?
Great movie. Very well acted. What do you call it? Peter Sellers and everything he had done throughout his career. I'd give this a 10.
All right, another 10. Right, we'll go over to Germany now. To our very own Dr. Strangelove, otherwise known as Beef Dad.
This film brings up so many anti-emotions in me because of what we went through at the time 2 years before. But Peter Sellers played 3 parts brilliantly, as always. So for me, this gets a 3.
A 3.
A 3.
Lower than Brian. Oh. Oh.
I know, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, well, it's a first. For me, as I say, it's there to scare people. That's what this movie is for. It's intended to do that. Kubrick went out of his way to put that up on screen and warn people this is what could happen if we go down this route. And for that reason, and it does, it's blatantly obvious. They don't hide anything. It's there on screen to say, look, we've got to change our ways, or this is going to happen. But adding this comedy of Peter Sellers in this, it sort of lightens the mood, because if Peter Sellers wasn't in this would have been a very, very, very dark movie indeed. But Peter Sellers there, it just sort of lightens the mood, and you've got to have darkness and comedy. It does go together, but I'm not going to give it a 10 because I do feel the movie felt a bit rushed for me, and as I mentioned the editing a bit as well. It's going to get a 9 from me, and to also, as Susan pointed out, all the nuclear blasts at the end with Dame Vera Lynn, We'll Meet Again. I mean, whoever thought of that, using that song, those clips together had? It just brings it all home. As you say, Beef Dad's saying with the emotions, what it all brought back to him. It does. It does make you. It hits you in the face, slaps you about, and you're thinking, what are we doing to ourselves? And this is what we could. This is what we could do to ourselves. Stanley Kubrick, he was a genius. Peter Sellers was a genius. it is a hard-hitting film. There is harder hitting films out there, but this is a hard-hitting film. I agree with what Beef Dad's saying. I agree with what Alex and Susan and Stephen said. I don't agree with what Brian says. I never have done. But yeah, it's a nan. It's just felt a bit mixed match for me. But thank you guys for sitting and watching this. If it's I can see with Beef Dad's face, it's hit home with him there. But thank you guys for turning up, talking about this. This is why I like Geeks Assemble, because the movies what come up on the polls and that lot, we don't know what's going to win. This won the poll a few weeks ago, and this is what we're going to talk about. We don't always pick the same movies every week, day in, day out, and that's what I like about this. We've got a bit of variety, and yeah, please follow us on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Tumblr, and until next time, we'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when.